Okay guys, so in the last video I showed you how to name Java files and then the basic rules with regards to Java file naming convention, right? So now you remember that during the last video I showed you I was comparing certain files on the console, and then you were like, oh shit, what's this guy doing, right? Yeah, I know. That's because if you don't know how to compile and then execute Java files, right? So I want to take this time and then let you understand what exactly was going on, right? So this is something that this video is actually not going to take long, but you need to pay attention to understand how to compile the Java files that you will create yourself, and how to do what, execute them on your computer, right? So that's all it is, right? So to compile our Java application, there are two things that we actually need to do, right? So let's imagine that we have our Java file here, right? Alright, so this will be okay. Let's create a Java file here. Let's create a Java file here with the name tutorials camp.java. Okay, so this should be the name of our Java file, which is tutorials camp.java, right? Let's change the style of this guy to something something like this, right? So in your Java application there will surely a class must go in, so let's create a class here inside your Java application. We know a class, don't worry, I'll talk about classes, how to do everything, don't worry, right? What you should take note in this video is how to compile Java application. That's exactly what I'm showing. So inside the Java file we have a class, right? And then we have class. Okay, so remember the naming convention that I told you, right? Class tutorials camp, right? So this is our class. Then inside our class we have our main method, which will be public static void main, and then inside here we will have our arguments, which takes in a string. I'll talk about these things, don't worry. Then inside here we will have system.out.println. I'm going to arrange this thing, don't worry. Hello world. That's nice. So let's actually format this guy here and see. Let me actually format this guy for you to see very well, because it's trying to mess up things. So let's change the color of it to black, and then we should be changing. Just open, you guys will see. So there's something to format this thing right here. Let's move this guy here a little bit for screen code. Alright, that's it. So here is our beautiful Java file, right? So this is a Java file that we have created, right? So our Java file, it's the file, the name of the file is what, tutorialscamp.java, right? And we have a class called tutorialscamp, right? Remember in the naming convention, if a Java class contains a public class, if a Java file contains a public class, right, that public class should be the name of the what of the Java file. So you can see that because this class is a public class, right, inside the file, the name of this Java file is what tutorialscamp.java, exactly as this, right? So what is going on here is that when this file is compiled, right, the Java file, the compiler will execute this main method right here, right? So it will look through this class and then execute whatever block of code in this what main method, right? I will talk about the main method in the next video, but don't worry. What I want you to know is what's this thing, line color. I wanted to highlight something. Okay, forget it. What I want to talk about is public static void. What this thing, right? So what this class is actually, what when it is compiled to print hello world what on the console, right? So now how can you actually, oh shit, so now how can he actually compile this application on the what on the console? Now before we can actually, there are two things involved in what executing this application on the console. First, we need to what compile this file, right? Remember what I said in the compiler about compile, right? We need you can see that this thing is the system.out.println, and this is what hello world. So we are typing hello world on the screen. But remember, computers, they don't understand English language, right? So if we tell the computer to actually print this thing direct, it will not understand, right? Because they don't speak English, right? So what you need to do is that we need to compile this hello world here, right, into something that the computer understands. And the language the computer speaks is what is a machine language, which is termed as what binary language or binary code, right? So grab the syntax like this, right? Let's imagine that this our Java application here, right, is a Chinese guy, right? It's a Chinese guy, right? And our laptop here, right? Okay. Is this the best way to show this, right? Okay. So let me make this thing clear for you guys, right? Sometimes you need to make things easy for you to understand, right? Because I don't need to be teaching in how I understand it. I need to make sure you guys don't know what I'm saying about, so you are beginners, so I need to teach in that way, right? So let me show you the steps to compile this thing first before I will talk about each one of it, because if I actually say it with a word of mouth without actually saying it, without showing any evidence, I'm kind of confusing you guys, right? So so this will be steps to steps to steps to compile and execute Java application or Java file. Java application or Java file, right? So now there are two things involved, right? So the first one is what? Compile the file first. And the syntax is okay. So let me make this one. Syntax is Java C Java file name, file name dot Java. Okay, and then the second one is to what? Execute. Okay, so this will be second one. Execute the compiled Java file. Execute the compiled Java file or class, right? I'll explain what. I'll explain everything for you to know. Yeah, the syntax is the syntax is Java, then Java file name, Java, or Java class name. Let me arrange this thing for you guys because I'm messing things up here. Okay, so the first one, okay, let me change this syntax here, the color of the syntax. I can actually create this thing and then just make a slideshow of it, right? But I don't do that. I prefer that you guys will see actually what is going on, right? Then you will get clear understanding of what is going on, instead of creating everything and then walking you through. Alright guys, so oh yes, I wanted a place to move this thing downward so that you can understand. There we go. Now let's grab it. Let me show what I mean, right? So we have our Java application right here, right, which is printing something on the console, and the name is tutorialscam.java. Now before we can actually compile and then execute this, there are two things we need to do. What? First, we need to compile the file first. We need to compile this Java file, right? Then second, we need to execute the compiled Java file or class, right? So what it is involved is that when we compile this Java file, what we will use the syntax of Java, then the Java file name here, and then it will convert all the code that is in this main method into a bit code, right? A byte code that the computer will understand. So what is involved in compiling is that it will compile this our Java file here into a binary code, right? So what I want you to know is that we use a specific syntax for compiling the Java code, right? So with this Java, what we use the Java and then followed by the Java file name here. So if you want to compile, we use Java, and the Java main Java compiler, right? So it's kind of saying, hey Java, compile what this file right here, which is the file name right here, right? And then what will happen is that when we compile our application, right, the compiler will convert all the line, all the block of code here into what, a binary code, all the classes into a binary code that the computer will understand. Now once we have compiled it, that's it, we cannot actually execute it, because what we have done is that we have compiled it, we have not executed what is in the what, this line of code. So in order to what, execute what this line of code does, you need to what, execute it with the what, Java, and then the what, the file name or the class name syntax, right? So what will happen is that second, what, once that it has compiled, you need to execute it with Java, right? When it is compiled, it will execute, it will compile all the, so imagine if you have two classes with different names, it will compile all the classes into what, a separate file. So one, you can either compile the Java application, the file name, the file here direct, or you can execute individual what, class files, right? I know this sounds very rude, but I'm going to give you a real world example because you're going to do it together, right? So what you need to remember is that when you have a Java file, right, you need to compile it first before you can actually what, execute it. And to compile it, you use the syntax of Java compile and then followed by the Java file name. If you want to execute it, you use the Java and then Java file name dot Java syntax, or you just simply use execute the what, the class name. So let's do this together and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. So open Notepad++. You can actually use any text editor, it doesn't matter, right? And then prefer not to use this. You can't see it, right? You guys can't see it. So let me use Notepad++ because that one you can see it very clearly. It's open. Okay, so let's create a class here. Let's make it public tutorials camp, right? So this is the class of what, sorry, followed by the class. This is the class of what, of our Java file. We have got one file here, and then let's public static void name system.out.println. Don't worry, I will explain what these guys are. Don't worry about what I'm doing. I'll explain everything to you. So now we have gotten our what, hello, our tutorials camp application here, right? Remember, once our file contains a public key, we should name what this file here right here as the name what, tutorials camp, right? So let's save this file as tutorials. Remember the naming is a key, tutorials camp, right? So I'm saving it on my desktop. Remember, it's a case sensitive, so if you make this thing a small letter, you are going to get what, an error, right? So now before we can compile this file here, right, before we can execute this guy here, we need to first, I made a mistake, you guys should remember, I've saved this thing as .txt file. I need to save it as what, Java, because you are working what, in Java, right? So sorry, I need to save it again. Save as tutorialscamp.java, okay, on your desktop. That's it. And then so that's it here. So first we need to, before you can execute, first you need to compile it, and then second what, execute it. So open cmd and then navigate to desktop cd desktop. I'm doing this because the file was saved on my desktop right here, right? And then hit on the command prompt, right? So let's execute the code here. Now what you need to do is that you need to type javac tutorials camp.java, right? Now remember the file name is java, the file name is tutorialscamp.com, right? And we have gotten another class, what, tutorialscamp.com. Watch what will happen if you hit enter, right? Java will compile this single class into a separate file right here. So you have another tutorialscamp on my desktop. Just watch closely. Okay, I've gotten an error in my code, right? It's saying tutorialscamp error on close string try system.out.hello world. So I'm making error, I'm having errors in my, that's because I didn't put a quotation mark on that, right? That's it. And then let's compile it again. Java tutorialscamp.java. Watch what will happen on my desktop. You see, it has compiled, and you can see this guy right here, right? So this guy right here, if you open it, you see there's some strict syntax in it. You can't actually know what they are, right? You can see this is something like the binary code. This is not the real binary code I'm talking about, right? But when Java wants to execute this thing, this is what it will execute, right? So now that we have compiled our file, right, this file here is converted into a binary code that this laptop here can understand. So we need to execute whatever is in this file, right? So we can do that with the syntax I told you about, Java, and then the Java file name right here, or the class that has been compiled here, right? So you can use the Java tutorials camp.java, right, with the Java file name, and we should get our hello world, right? We have gotten our hello world. So now we just executed the file here, right? But in case, let's say you want to execute only the class here, what you can do is that Java and then the class name, which is tutorials camp, right? If you hit enter, you have gotten hello world, right? And that's exactly what you need to know, right? So the key difference is that when you are executing, you can either execute the file, and if you execute the file, the compiler will look for the class with the main method and then execute it, right? But if you execute the class, a particular class, then it will execute whatever is in the class, but that class should have a main method. So what will happen is that in case we have another class here, let's say we have a class with the name YouTube, right? We have the class name YouTube, right? So it doesn't matter which class contains the main method, right? Which contains the main method. I'll talk about the main method in the upcoming video, so don't worry. So now what we have gotten two classes in this thing. So when we compile it, each classes will be compile, right? So now when we compile, we should have another YouTube class here, right? So let's compile it, and you see Java tutorials camp.java, and watch, you will get YouTube here. Okay, we have gotten error, right? Do you know why we are getting error? Watch this. You see, we have gotten another public class and another public class here, right? But in the file naming convention that I told you that in Java, a single Java file, only one class is allowed to have a public class. Only one class is allowed to be annotated with a public class. So you need to get rid of this, and there you go. it should compare it. We should be Java. We should be able to go tutorials camp.java. Watch closely what we do here. You see, you have gotten another YouTube here, right? So look what is actually happening here. Java, all the classes that we have here, we have this tutorial class here. It has compiled here. We have our YouTube class. It has been what converted. It has been compiled here, and this is the main the file that we are working with, right? So Java, it compile each particular class, whatever it compile each individual class into what bytecode, right? So if you want to execute it, you can execute these classes however you like, right? Individually, right? So if I want to execute what is in YouTube, I have to do Java YouTube, right? That's the class name, and you see you have gotten YouTube. That's exactly what I'm printing out here. And if I want to print in the tutorials camp, what is in that class, you just have to do Java tutorials camp, right? That was an error, typing mistake here, right? It's rather Java tutorials camp, right? The first one, I made this a capital letter. It's supposed to be what? A small letter. Then we should be ready to go. Whoa, what's happening? Okay, I've not hit enter. Sorry. So you see it has compiled into hello world, right? So that's it. So guys, that's it all for today. This concept is very important, right? There's one more concept which is the main method that I'm going to talk about next, right? It's very important, and you should pay close attention to, right? That's the file naming convention that I told about in the earlier videos, and then this one, how to compile and execute Java files, and then what I'm going to talk about, the Java main method, right? They are very important, and those are the basics that you need to know, right? So the takeaway in this code, this tutorial is that if you have a Java file, before you can actually display it, run it on your computer, right? You need to compile that file first. Then after you have compiled it, you need to what? Execute the file or the individual classes, right? It's very easy, right? I know you can actually practice this by using I actually type in this thing that I just included in your file, right? Using this method that I included in the code. I know I've not talked about this thing. That's exactly what I'm going to talk about, but don't worry, right? Just type them out and make sure everything works out. If you encounter any errors, just let me know, okay, in the comment box below, and I'll be there to help you, right? So that's something that you should know. Take your time, and then just get the concept right, okay? Don't learn the code, right? Don't be learning the code, learn the concept, right? Because the problem with learning code or memorizing code is that if you forget, that is it all, right? But if you know the concept, you can actually remember it, and then use it however now you like, right? So remember that, because when we were typing things, like I made this thing public class, and then we have another public class. So when we compare, we had an error, right? So because I know the concept that in a Java file you can have only one public class, immediately I saw the error, I changed it and ran the application, and it compiled neatly, right? So if I don't know the concept, I will just be like bubbling and be saying like, oh, I'm getting errors, my Java file is not working, this and that, right? So take your time, right? Understand the concept. Coding is not something that it's not hard, trust me. You just need to understand the concept. Don't learn the code, right? Learn the concept behind the code, and you'll be good to go, right? That's just a little advice on something that I've been using. It works, right? So that's it, right? So that's it, guys. See you in the next video. Don't forget, if you have not subscribed to the channel, subscribe, right? And if you want other tutorials that I want me to talk about, you can let me know in the comment section below, right? Hit the bell button too, because the next video is coming. We are going to talk about the Java main method, these things that is going on here, right? We talk about it and you will know exactly what is going on. So see you in the next tutorial. Have a nice day.